everything, will find that it has nothing. On the other hand, if the races decide to share political power and economic wealth, the chances are the country would be stable and the economy would grow. Each race would get less than 100% of the political power or economic wealth, but the growth of the country in both spheres would ensure that the portion that each race gets would actually be bigger than the 100% of the original political power and economic wealth. Reduced to simple terms, it is better to own a slice of the political or economic cake which grows healthily than to own the whole of a cake that shrinks and disappears. This simple philosophy is what saves Malaysia and helps it to grow. The races share political power and strive to redistribute wealth from the growing economic cake so as to ensure that every race has a fair share. The Malaysian affirmative action is embodied in the new economic policy, which has two objectives. One, to eradicate poverty irrespective of race, and two, to eliminate the identification of race with economic function as a way to equalize the distribution of wealth. Malaysia has not succeeded fully in the second objective of redistributing wealth equitably, but absolute poverty has been reduced to less than 1%, while relative poverty to 5% from 50% or so at the start. With the development of skills and the fair sharing of political powers and economic wealth, which brought about good growth and development, the time came to be more ambitious. In 1991, the government launched Vision 2020, that is, perfect vision according to the optometrist. Vision 2020 is about becoming a developed country in our own mold by 2020, that is, in approximately 30 years' time. The developed countries we saw around us were not perfect. Many have lost their morality and culture as they developed. They had become too greedy and did not hesitate to enrich themselves at the expense of others, including the very poor. They are too exploitative. We wanted to avoid greed and to develop gracefully, hence development in our own mold. By the beginning of the vision period, we had already improved indigenous capacity in investment and industrial skills. Much of the infrastructure had been put in place. What we needed was to identify the fields of commerce and industry which suited our capacity and which would stimulate growth. All the time, we bore in mind the need for political stability. Our experience and the experience of others have shown that government is not good in business. When government goes into business, the tendency is to seek monopoly and to use the leverage of government power. No one wants to compete with a government company because of this. The workers in government enterprises cannot be motivated. They do not see how making profits for a government company will benefit them. In fact, they and the bureaucrats believe that government businesses should not be profit motivated. They should merely create jobs and good income for the employees. The result is lack of efficiency and lack of understanding about competition in the marketplace. Often, the employees and even the managers try to siphon off some of the earnings by padding the cost of inputs, side deals, and the like. Because government companies continuously lose money and require injections of capital all the time, Malaysia decided to transfer government companies and some functions to the private sector, that is, to privatize. In some countries, privatization means selling government-owned services like telecoms, power plants, airlines, etc., to foreigners in order to earn foreign exchange with which to pay foreign debts. In Malaysia, privatization is about transferring government business to Malaysian private sector, though a small percentage may be sold to foreigners. The cost to the private sector must be such that the business would be viable and profitable. If the assets are valued at current market prices, the cost to the private owner would be so high that no profit could be made. And business which loses money is not good for the government and the country. But when it makes profits, the government can collect taxes, people would be employed, suppliers would make money, which would also be taxed. So it is not a loss for the government to undervalue the net assets to be transferred in order to ensure viability and profitability. In any case, the assets may have been acquired a very long time ago at a minute fraction of the current market price and were not giving the government any returns anyway. Sometimes the government may retain a share in the company and benefit from the profits and the appreciation of the shares. As an example, the telecoms department used to get injections of funds every year from the government of around 200 million Malaysian dollars. Today, after privatization, it makes a profit of around 2 billion Malaysian dollars. Thus, not only did privatization relieve the government from having to allocate funds yearly to the telecoms department, but it yielded considerable revenue through taxes and dividends. But privatization can fail. And in Malaysia, the privatization of the airline failed. This failure was not due to mismanagement as much as the general recession due to the currency crisis. Many private enterprises also failed during the crisis. Government officers may be considered professionals in the field of administration. In Malaysia, the police and the military are also professional in the sense that they are not involved in politics and they serve whoever is in power. This is absolutely necessary if the administration and security machinery is to work properly. There were attempts by some politicians, government and opposition to influence the administrators and get them to take sides. But this has not really succeeded. The professionalism of the government personnel has been maintained in Malaysia. And it has enabled the administrative machinery to function even when caretaker governments were in place. As long as government functions are not commercialized, they will not need managers familiar with business.